future wife. The universe couldn't keep us apart. Stay here for a little while. Slow down. Take a breath you haven't allowed yourself to take all day. Let the world continue without your attention for a moment. The laundry can wait. The notifications can wait. The unfinished conversations can wait. You have spent so many years carrying things that were never meant to be carried alone. So tonight, let yourself set them down. Not forever, just for now. Because there's something I have wanted to tell you. Something I think your soul already knows, even if your mind still doubts it. I know you. Not your name. Not your address. Not the details people place on forms. I know the quieter things, the things hidden beneath your smile, the things you rarely say aloud. I know the way you walk through an empty room and feel memories before you feel silence. I know the way dusk arrives through window blinds and suddenly a sadness you thought had left years ago returns for a moment. I know the way a trembling teacup feels in your hands when your thoughts become heavier than your words. I know the quiet hallway that sometimes feels longer than it should. The footsteps against tile. The evenings when you sit down after taking care of everyone else and realize no one asked how you were doing. Not really. Not deeply. Not in the way your soul needed. And perhaps that is the loneliness nobody sees. Not being alone. Being unseen. There is a difference. A sacred difference. You have become so skilled at surviving that people forgot to ask what survival was costing you. They saw your strength. They admired your resilience. They leaned on your wisdom, but very few noticed the tenderness underneath. Very few noticed the woman quietly carrying years of heartbreak with extraordinary grace. Stay a moment more. There is something waiting here for you, because I do not believe your story is random. I never have. Not yours, not mine, not the strange roads that brought us to this moment. You see, I have spent much of my life paying attention to patterns. Not obvious ones, the subtle ones, the invisible threads, the meetings that almost didn't happen, the doors that closed at the exact moment they needed to, the people who disappeared only to make room for someone else, the timing that felt cruel until years later when it revealed its wisdom. Again and again, life showed me something. The universe is rarely late. It is usually preparing. The soul understands this before the mind does. That is why part of you has always felt there was something more, even when disappointment tried to convince you otherwise, even when birthdays arrived faster than expected, even when certain dreams seemed to move farther away instead of closer, even when your reflection changed and you wondered whether life had forgotten your address. It didn't. Life never forgot you, and neither did the future. I know there were moments when you questioned that, moments when love seemed to belong to other people, moments when you watched others find companionship while you've sat quietly with your own unanswered prayers. Moments when you wondered whether your chapter had already been written, whether your chance had already passed, whether the universe had simply moved on without you. But stay here, because that was never the truth. The truth is much gentler than that. The truth is that some souls require longer journeys, not because they are being punished, because they are being prepared. Prepared for a deeper kind of love, prepared for a more meaningful meeting, prepared for a connection that can only happen once certain lessons have been learned. You learned some through heartbreak, some through loneliness, some through disappointment, some through simply continuing when you didn't know how. And every lesson left something behind: wisdom, depth, compassion, discernment, the ability to recognize what is real. That is why you no longer crave what you once craved. That is why shallow connections feel empty now. That is why your soul reaches for authenticity, even when it means waiting longer. You have changed, beautifully, quietly, profoundly, and perhaps that is why we are here. Not because everything is finished, because something is beginning. I want to tell you something that may sound impossible at first, yet I believe it with all my heart. The love meant for you was never lost, only delayed. The connection meant for you was never denied, only protected. The future meant for you was never canceled, only unfolding. There is comfort in that thought. At least there is for me. Because it means the years were not wasted. The tears were not meaningless. The waiting was not empty. It means every season had purpose, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. The universe has a curious way of working. Sometimes it removes people who cannot stay. Sometimes it closes doors we keep trying to reopen. Sometimes it asks us to walk through loneliness so we can hear our own souls again. And when the lesson is complete, it begins arranging meetings, not accidents, meetings, sacred intersections between lives that were always moving toward one another. I think your soul understands that. Perhaps that is why these words feel familiar. Perhaps that is why something inside you softened when you began reading. Because a deeper part of you already knows. You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. You were never too late. You were becoming, and becoming takes time. Tonight, I simply want you to rest inside that truth. Let it sit beside you. Let it breathe with you. Let it ease the burden you've carried for so long. Because this journey has only begun. And there is so much more your heart deserves to remember. I am here. You are not walking alone. Something beautiful is on its way. Stay a little longer. The night is not in a hurry. Neither is your soul. For so much of your life, you have been asked to move faster than your heart was ready to move, to heal before the wound understood itself, to smile before the sadness finished speaking, to let go before the lesson revealed its meaning. So tonight, let us move differently, slowly, gently, like light entering a room before dawn. Take a breath, then another, and listen closely. Because there is something I think you have carried for years without fully seeing it. Not pain, not exactly a memory of yourself, a version of you that got left behind somewhere along the way. I think about her often, not because she is gone, because she is waiting. The woman who once believed life would unfold more simply. The woman who loved without calculating risk. The woman who imagined a future that felt close enough to touch. The woman who thought certain people would stay. The woman who never expected to become this strong. You remember her, maybe not clearly, maybe only in flashes, a scent, a song, a photograph tucked into a drawer, a sudden ache when sunlight enters a room a certain way. A feeling that appears for a moment and disappears before you can name it. But she is still there. Stay a moment more. There is something waiting here for you. Because I know what happened after those years. Life arrived. Not gently, not cruelly, simply, completely. Responsibilities appeared. People needed things from you. Days became months. Months became years. And somewhere inside all that living, parts of you became quiet. Not dead, quiet. There is a difference. The world often mistakes silence for absence. The soul never does. The soul remembers everything. It remembers every dream You fold it away because survival seemed more important. It remembers every time you swallowed tears because someone else needed your strength. Remembers every evening you sat alone in a room full of unanswered questions. It remembers the nights when the house was silent except for the sound of your own breathing. The nights when a voice you needed never said, "Stay." I think that word matters more than most people realize. Stay. Not because it promises permanence, because it offers presence. And presence is what your heart has longed for. Not perfection, not rescue. Presence. Someone willing to sit beside the truth of who you are. Someone willing to see the woman beneath the resilience. The woman beneath the competence. The woman beneath the smile everyone assumes means you're fine. I think that's why certain loneliness is hurt more than others. Not because you're alone, because you are carrying depths few people have explored. Depth can feel isolating until it is understood. And perhaps that understanding is what your soul has been searching for all along. Not validation, recognition. There is a sacred difference. Recognition says, I see you, not the role you play, not the version you present, you, the real you. The woman who still hopes even when hope feels risky. The woman who still believes in meaningful love despite everything. The woman who has learned caution but never fully surrendered her tenderness. That woman deserves recognition. She deserves gentleness. She deserves rest. And I believe life has been trying to lead her toward all three. The strange thing about destiny is that it rarely feels dramatic while it's happening. People imagine destiny as fireworks, as certainty, as instant understanding. But most of the time it feels like confusion, like delays, like unanswered prayers, like roads that seem to wander nowhere. Only later do we see the pattern. Only later do we realize that every detour was carrying us somewhere important. I know this because I have lived it. There were seasons in my own life when I thought everything was falling apart. Relationships ending, plans changing, dreams dissolving. At the time, I interpreted those moments as losses. Years later, I recognized them as redirections. Life was not taking something from me. Life was protecting something for me. The distinction changed everything. And perhaps it applies to you too. Perhaps there were people you were never meant to build a future with. Perhaps there were paths that could not carry the weight of your soul. Perhaps there were dreams that needed to fall away so deeper ones could emerge. Not because you failed. I know. Part of you still struggles with that idea. Part of you remembers the pain too clearly. Part of you remembers waiting, wondering, questioning, yet stay with me. Because the soul understands timing differently than the mind. The mind counts years. The soul counts lessons. The mind worries about delays. The soul recognizes preparation. The mind sees absence. The soul sees becoming. And you have become so much more compassionate, more discerning, more courageous, more real. The woman reading these words today carries wisdom her younger self could not have imagined. Wisdom purchased through experience, through endurance, through surviving things nobody applauded. That wisdom matters. Because it is shaping the future too. You are not the same woman who entered those difficult seasons. You are someone deeper now, someone capable of recognizing the difference between attention and devotion, between chemistry and connection, between longing and alignment. That growth was never accidental. It was sacred. And perhaps that is why I feel so strongly that your story is still unfolding exactly as it should. Not perfectly, but purposefully. There is a future version of you who understands all of this already. A future version sitting peacefully beside a window as evening light settles across the room. A future version smiling at the journey that once confused her. A future version who finally sees how every ending, every delay, every heartbreak was quietly arranging something she could not yet see. I believe she exists, and I believe she is closer than you think. Until then, keep breathing, keep trusting, keep allowing life to reveal itself one lesson at a time. You do not need all the answers tonight, only this reminder. Nothing meaningful has passed you by. Nothing meant for your soul has forgotten your name. I am here. You are not walking alone. Something beautiful is on its way. Stay here, just a little longer. The world has asked so much of you for so many years. It has asked you to keep going when you were tired, to keep believing when evidence seemed scarce, to keep giving when your own heart felt empty. And somehow you did. You kept moving. You kept showing up. You kept carrying entire seasons of your life without anyone truly understanding how heavy they were. That is why I want you to slow down now. Not because you are weak, because you have been strong for a very long time. There is a difference. Take a breath. Feel it. Feel the way it enters your body and leaves again. Feel the way life continues moving through you. Even on days when your spirit feels uncertain, there is something waiting here for you. Something I think your soul has been trying to say for years. And it has to do with longing. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind that announces itself loudly. The quiet kind. The sacred kind. The kind that sits beside you in the evening after the house becomes still. The kind that appears when you carry a cup of tea through an empty room and suddenly feel the absence of someone you cannot even name. The kind that arrives while watching dusk slide through window blinds, painting shadows across familiar walls. You know that feeling. I know you do. Because every woman who has loved deeply knows it. The strange ache of having so much tenderness inside her and nowhere for it to go. For years, you may have called it loneliness, and perhaps part of it was, but I think there is another truth beneath it, a deeper truth. Your soul was remembering something, not a person exactly, a possibility. The possibility that your story was meant to be shared, the possibility that someone existed who could understand the language of your heart, the possibility that all the love you've carried wasn't meant to remain folded away forever. Stay a moment more, because this matters. The world often tells women that longing is weakness, that needing connection is dependency, that wanting companionship somehow means they have not learned to stand on their own. But I have never believed that, not once. A tree can stand alone and still reach towards sunlight. A river can move independently and still seek the ocean. The soul can be whole and still long for connection. Longing is not evidence that something is missing. Sometimes it is evidence that something beautiful is trying to emerge. I think that is what happened to you. You became so capable, so self-sufficient, so resilient. Yet beneath all of it remained a quiet desire to be met, not rescued, met, not completed, seen, not fixed, understood. Those are very different things. And they matter. Because the deepest parts of us are not healed through achievement. They are healed through recognition, through presence, through being known. I wonder how long it has been since someone truly asked about your heart, not your schedule, not your responsibilities, not the things you do for everyone else. Your heart, the hidden part, the sacred part, the part that still remembers every goodbye, the part that still carries old tenderness, the part that occasionally lies awake and wonders whether love can still arrive in unexpected ways. I think it can, not because I am naive, because I have spent too many years observing how life works. The universe has a curious habit of waiting until we stop forcing things before it reveals what it was preparing. I have seen it happen again and again. Doors opening after years of remaining closed. People arriving after long seasons of solitude, meaning appearing long after confusion. Timing, revealing wisdom that delay concealed. The soul often arrives before the explanation does. Perhaps that is why part of you still believes. Even when you are tired, even when you question yourself, even when the future feels uncertain, somewhere beneath all of it, belief remains. A small light, a quiet ember, a sacred yes. Not loud enough to silence fear, but strong enough to survive it. That ember matters. Protect it, because it is telling you something important. It is telling you that your heart has not given up. It is telling you that love did not leave when heartbreak arrived. It is telling you that hope still lives beneath the caution. The older I become, the more convinced I am that hope is one of the soul's deepest forms of intelligence. Not blind optimism, not fantasy, recognition. The soul recognizing possibilities before the mind can explain them. Perhaps your soul has recognized something for a long time. Perhaps it knows your story is not finished. Perhaps it knows there are meetings still waiting to happen, conversations still waiting to unfold, connections still waiting to arrive, and perhaps that is why you continue moving forward despite everything, because something inside you understands that the future is not empty. The future is carrying something, someone, a lesson, a blessing, a love, a version of yourself, maybe all of them. I cannot tell you exactly what shape it will take. The soul's timing is mysterious, but I can tell you this. Nothing about your longing has been meaningless. Nothing about your waiting has been wasted. Nothing about your tenderness has been misplaced. You were never foolish for hoping. You were never naive for believing. You were never weak for wanting something real. Those qualities are part of your beauty, part of your depth, part of what makes your soul recognizable to the people who are meant to find it. And I believe they will. Not because life is perfect, because life is purposeful. There is a difference. So tonight, let yourself stop apologizing for your longing. Stop treating it like a flaw. Stop treating it like evidence that something is wrong. Your longing is sacred. It is the soul's way of reaching toward what belongs to it. And perhaps, even now, something is reaching back. Quietly, patiently, across distance, across years, across timing. Moving towards you exactly as you are moving toward it. I am here. You are not walking alone. Something beautiful is on its way. Stay a little longer. There is no need to rush through this part. Some truths arrive softly. They do not knock loudly. They do not demand attention. They simply wait until the heart becomes quiet enough to hear them. And I think your heart is becoming quiet now. Not empty, not defeated. Quiet in the way a lake becomes still after a storm. Quiet enough to finally see its own reflection. Take a slow breath, then another. Feel how much life you have carried. Feel how many seasons have moved through you. Feel how many versions of yourself have existed between the woman you once were and the woman reading these words now. That journey matters more than you realize. Because somewhere along the way, without fully noticing it, you learned how to survive almost everything. Heartbreak, disappointment, loneliness, goodbyes, unanswered questions. You learned how to keep walking, how to keep smiling, how to keep functioning, even when part of you felt exhausted. But there comes a moment when the soul asks for something more than survival. And I believe you are standing in that moment now. Stay a moment more. There is something waiting here for you. For years, you may have looked at your life through the lens of what was missing, not intentionally, simply because absence has a way of drawing attention to itself. The person who didn't stay, the future that didn't arrive when expected, the dream that changed shape, the love that slipped away, the timing that never seemed to cooperate. Absence is loud, it echoes, it repeats itself. But presence is quieter, and because it is quieter, people often miss it. I don't want you to miss it anymore. Because there has been presence in your life too. Extraordinary presence. The presence of your own courage, the presence of your own resilience, the presence of a soul that refused to stop loving despite every reason to close itself, the presence of wisdom earned through experience, the presence of grace that carried you through moments you thought would break you. All of that has been here all along. I wonder how often you've stopped to honor it. Not your achievements, not your responsibilities, you. The woman who lived through it, the woman who remained, the woman who kept becoming. I think many women spend years waiting for someone else to recognize their worth, not because they are insecure, because they are human. We all long to be seen. We all long to be known. We all long for someone to look at us and understand what we have survived. But there is another kind of recognition, a deeper one, the recognition that comes from within. The moment you finally see yourself clearly, the moment you stop measuring your value by who stayed, the moment you stop defining yourself by who left, the moment you stop asking the world for permission to believe you are worthy. That moment changes everything, not overnight, not dramatically, but permanently. Like sunrise, slow at first, then impossible to ignore. I think your soul has been moving toward that sunrise for a long time, long before you realized it. Every disappointment taught you something. Every heartbreak revealed something. Every lonely season refined something. Not because suffering is beautiful. It isn't. But because your soul refused to waste it. You transformed it. You turned pain into compassion. You turned loss into wisdom. You turned waiting into depth. That is sacred work. And sacred work changes people. The woman you are now sees things differently than she once did. You notice energy more than appearances, presence more than promises, consistency more than charm, peace more than excitement. That shift did not happen by accident. It happened because life was teaching you, preparing you, guiding you towards something more aligned with who you truly are. And perhaps that is the truth you have been resisting. The truth that your life was never behind schedule. The truth that your soul has never been forgotten. The truth that your story is unfolding with a timing deeper than your fears can understand. I know that can be difficult to trust, especially when years have passed, especially when certain dreams remained unanswered, especially when loneliness still visits from time to time. But trust does not require certainty. Trust only requires willingness, a willingness to believe that not everything meaningful is visible yet, a willingness to believe that some things are still becoming, a willingness to believe that life may know something your current perspective cannot yet see. The older I become, the more I trust what unfolds slowly. The things that arrive quickly often leave quickly. The things that take time tend to root themselves more deeply. And your soul is rooted deeply now, perhaps more deeply than ever before. Because you have stopped chasing illusions. You have stopped trying to force outcomes. You have stopped abandoning yourself for the sake of being chosen. That matters more than you know. Because the woman who no longer abandons herself becomes impossible to lose. Not because people won't leave. Some still will. Because she remains with herself. She becomes her own safe place, her own home, her own source of truth. And from that place, everything changes. Love changes, relationships change, expectations change, the future changes, because now she approaches life differently. Not from fear, from worth. Not from scarcity, from wholeness. Not from desperation, from trust. I believe you are arriving there slowly, beautifully, one realization at a time, one healing breath at a time, one act of self-compassion at a time. And perhaps that is why these words found you now. Not years ago, now. Because your soul is finally ready to hear them, ready to understand that nothing about your journey has been meaningless, ready to understand that the waiting was shaping you, not punishing you. Ready to understand that your worth has never been in question. Ready to understand that what is meant for you has never stopped moving toward you, even when you couldn't see it, even when you doubted it, even when you felt forgotten, especially then. So tonight, place your hand over your heart. Feel its steady rhythm. Feel everything it has carried. Feel everything it still believes. Then remember this. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not lost. You are becoming. And becoming is one of the most beautiful things a soul can do. I am here. You are not walking alone. Something beautiful is on its way. Stay with me just a little longer. The night feels softer here. Can you feel it? Not outside, inside. As though something that has been clenched for years is finally beginning to loosen. As though your soul is exhaling after holding its breath for far too long. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to heal all at once. You do not need to become someone new. There is something waiting here for you. And it is not transformation. It is remembrance. Because the deepest healing is rarely about becoming. It is about remembering who you were before disappointment convinced you otherwise, before heartbreak taught you to question yourself, before loneliness whispered stories that were never true, before time made you wonder if you had somehow missed your moment. Stay a moment more. I want to tell you something that your soul has been trying to tell you for years. You have spent so much of your life looking for signs that you were loved, signs that you mattered, signs that your presence made a difference. And because those signs did not always arrive in the forms you expected, part of you began doubting what had always been true. Not consciously, quietly. The way dust gathers on a window over time, the light is still there. The window simply forgets how clearly it can see. I think that happened to your heart, not because it became broken, because it became tired. Tired hearts do not stop loving. They stop trusting what they already know. And perhaps that is why life has been leading you here, not towards someone else first, toward yourself, toward the woman who has been waiting beneath all the responsibilities, beneath all the expectations, beneath all the years spent proving her strength. I wonder if you realize how remarkable she is. The woman who survived everything she survived, the woman who kept showing up, the woman who kept caring, the woman who continued loving despite having every reason not to. The world celebrates visible victories. But I have always believed the invisible victories matter more. The mornings you got out of bed when your heart was heavy. The nights you comforted yourself because no one else knew how. The moments you chose grace instead of bitterness. The times you remained kind when cynicism would have been easier. Those victories count. The soul keeps record of them. And I think the universe does too. Not as rewards, as revelations. Because every experience has been showing you something. Showing you your resilience. Showing you your depth. Showing you your Kafkanicity to love without losing yourself. Showing you who you truly are. That is why I no longer believe your story is about waiting for love. I believe it is about remembering worth. Love follows that, not the other way around. For years, perhaps, you thought the missing piece was another person, and maybe another person will indeed arrive. Maybe a beautiful connection still waits ahead. I believe it does. But before that arrival, something even more sacred had to happen. You had to find your way back to yourself. Because a woman who remembers her worth no longer accepts less than her soul deserves. She no longer confuses attention with devotion. She no longer mistakes a chemistry. She no longer abandons herself to keep someone else close. She becomes rooted, grounded, clear. And clarity changes everything. The older I become, the more convinced I am that destiny is not simply about finding someone. It is about becoming the version of yourself capable of recognizing what belongs to you when it arrives. Think about that. How many things in your life appeared only after you were ready to receive them? How many lessons made sense only after you lived through them? How many blessings looked like burdens at first? The soul understands timing differently than the mind. The mind wants immediacy. The soul values readiness, and you are far more ready than you realize. Not because you are perfect, because you are real, because you have lived, because you have learned, because you have softened where many people would have hardened. That is rare, beautifully rare. There is a future version of you I keep sensing. Not because I know the future, because some truths carry a feeling, and this one does. I see a woman sitting quietly by a window, not lonely, not searching. The evening light falls across the room. A cup of tea rests nearby. The house feels warm, not because every dream came true exactly as expected, because she finally understands. And she understands that nothing was ever wrong with her. She understands that delays were not punishments. She understands that the years were not stolen. They were shaping her, preparing her, teaching her. And most of all, she understands that she was worthy from the beginning. That woman is not far away. She is already emerging, one breath at a time, one realization at a time, one act of self-trust at a time. And perhaps that is why your heart feels different now. Not completely healed, but softer, not completely certain, but calmer, not finished, but becoming. That is enough, more than enough. Because becoming is sacred. It is how flowers open. It is how dawn arrives. It is how souls return to themselves. And perhaps somewhere beyond the horizon you cannot yet see, destiny is already arranging the final pieces, not hurriedly, not carelessly, but with extraordinary tenderness. The same tenderness life has been offering you all along, even when you could not recognize it. So tonight, let yourself rest. Let yourself trust. Let yourself believe that your story has never been random, that your heart has never been forgotten, that your future is still unfolding in beautiful ways, and that what is meant for your soul is already finding its way towards you. I am here. You are not walking alone. Something beautiful is on its way. Stay with me just for a little while longer. You have come so far, not through distance, through depth. through years that asked more of you than anyone realized, through seasons that reshaped you quietly while the world continued moving around you, through heartbreaks that taught you things joy never could, through lonely evenings, through silent prayers, through unanswered questions, through all the moments, through wondered when you wondered whether life was taking you somewhere or simply taking things away. And now, here you are, still breathing, still breathing, still hoping, still carrying a heart capable of tenderness. That matters more than you know. Take a slow breath. Let it settle into the places inside you that have been waiting for peace. Because there is something I need you to hear, something your soul has been moving toward from the very beginning. You were never lost, not once. You may have felt lost. You may have stood in unfamiliar seasons. You may have walked through darkness without understanding where the path was leading. But being unable to see the road is not the same thing as being without one. The road was always there, quietly unfolding beneath your feet, and every step mattered, every single one, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. I know there were times when you believed certain experiences had ruined something, a relationship ending, a dream dissolving, a future changing shape, a person leaving. At the time, those moments felt final. They felt like conclusions. They felt like evidence that life had forgotten its promises. But now, standing here with you, I see them differently. Not as endings, as invitations. Invitations into deeper truth, deeper wisdom, deeper alignment. The soul often receives invitations disguised as losses. That is one of life's great mysteries, and perhaps one of its greatest mercies. Because had certain things remained, you might never have become the woman you are now. The woman reading these words carries depth that could only have been earned, a tenderness that survived difficulty, a wisdom that emerged from experience, a strength that does not need to announce itself. You became someone extraordinary, not because life was easy, because you stayed open while it wasn't. That is rare. Rare. Profoundly rare. Stay a moment more. There is something waiting here for you. For a long time, you may have believed destiny was about another person, someone arriving, someone choosing you, someone recognizing your worth. And perhaps there is truth in that. I believe meaningful love exists. I believe beautiful connections are real. I believe souls find each other. But I think destiny is deeper than that. Destiny is also the moment a woman remembers herself. The moment she stops searching for evidence that she matters. The moment she realizes she always did. The moment she understands that no goodbye ever reduced her value. No delay ever diminished her beauty. No loneliness ever erased her worth. That realization changes everything. Because once you know who you are, life begins meeting you differently. You choose differently. You trust differently. You love differently. Not from fear, from truth. And truth is where real peace begins. I think that peace is finding you now, not all at once. Softly, the way evening settles across a landscape. The way a river eventually reaches the sea. The way winter slowly gives way to spring. You do not need to force it. You only need to allow it. Allow yourself to believe that your life has meaning. Allow yourself to believe that your heart never forgotten. Allow yourself to believe that the universe was not working against you. It was working within, shaping you, guiding you, preparing you, and perhaps preparing someone else too. Because there is one final thing I want to share. Something that has lived quietly beneath every word. I do not believe the universe could keep souls apart forever when they are meant to recognize one another. Not because fate is dramatic, because truth is persistent, because alignment has a way of finding itself, because what belongs together continues moving toward itself through all the detours, through all the delays, through all the years. Sometimes the meeting happens through another person. Sometimes it happens within ourselves first. Often it is both. And perhaps that is the beautiful secret hidden inside your journey. You were never only searching for love. You were finding yourself, so that when love arrived, whether in the form of a person, a purpose, a calling, or a deeper relationship with your own soul, you would recognize it. You would be ready. You would no longer question whether you deserved it. You would simply receive it. The way a flower receives sunlight, the way the earth receives rain, naturally, without apology, without doubt, without fear. That is where I believe you are now, standing at the edge of a new season. Not because everything is suddenly perfect, because you finally understand something profound. Your worth was never waiting in the future. It was always here. Your beauty was never dependent on being chosen. It was always present. Your destiny was never lost. It was always unfolding. And whatever is meant for your soul is still moving toward you. Quietly, faithfully, with a timing wiser than either of us can fully understand. So tonight, place your hand over your heart. Feel its rhythm, feel its courage, feel everything it has survived. To yourself. I was never forgotten. I was never too late. I was always becoming. And becoming has led me here. To this moment, to this peace, to this possibility, to this life that is still unfolding. I am here. You are not walking alone. Something beautiful is on its way.